No, I have monetized. Sorry.
Right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Team News Reaction video. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined by Joshua Barry as we react to the Rangers team that will take to the field at Pittodrie against Aberdeen in just over an hour's time. I'll give you a rundown of the team and then I'll get your thoughts, Joshua. It's pretty attacking. The big news, the headline news is that Connor Goldson is back in the defence, which is fantastic to see. Rangers line up with McGregor in goal, a back four of Tavernier, Sands, Goldson and Devine, a midfield of Jack and Kamara, with Tillman, Kent, Morelos and Sakala leading the line for Rangers tonight. On the bench for Michael Beale's side, McLaughlin, Lundstrom, Matondo, Wright, Arfield, Davis, McCann, King and Alex Lowry. Your initial thoughts to the team, Joshua?
Yeah, well, I kind of thought that Beale might go back for a kind of three-man midfield with pushing Tillman up. He's spoken a lot about wanting to get goal scorers in the team. He's spoken about wanting to play with two strikers, and I think it's telling that in his first difficult away game, and I know Aberdeen at the weekend didn't play brilliantly. I presume they'll come out a little bit more tonight. But obviously everything's going to be compared to Gerrard for a time because that's where Beale was before. That was a setup before, and we're always looking at, well, what's the differences under Beale compared to under Gerrard? Where do the two differ? Where is Beale going to make some differences? Because we know they had a lot of the influence last time. And for me, before, this was a game that Gerrard would normally put in those three central midfielders and be a little bit more battle ready. But it looks like Beale's going to go and try and dominate the game and still play in and around the opposition box, even though he's away from home, which I think is the right approach because you can't, I think, sink too much into making this game a battle, even though it's away from home. Rangers will still be favourites and should be. So yeah, it's a team that has goals in it. You've got two goal scorers in there, in Sakala and Morelos. We've seen the benefit of that against Hibs with Sakala scoring that goal. That wasn't necessarily a kind of high value chance, but it resulted in a goal because he's a finisher. He's not the most polished player, but he is going to get you, I think it was 0.5 goals per 90 last season. And the big news is Connor Goldson's back in there. Good to see him back much quicker than I think some people anticipated. You'll have seen on the Twitter feed today some quotes from Michael Beale in his press conference during the embargoed section yesterday when Goldson heard that King was out of the game against Hibs, even though I think he'd done a session and a half. He called Beale and said he was playing, and Beale had to, as much as he'd have loved that to happen, had to save him and make sure he was ready. And he is now for this big game against Aberdeen. So yeah, looking forward to it, Derek. I think it's an attacking team, and that's what supporters will want to see. That's what Beale's kind of promised for these first few weeks. So it's good to see him kind of stick to his word and go for that.
Yeah, lots of questions coming in. Let's get to a few of them. Paul McGarrigle says, surprised he went with Sands rather than King. In my predicted lineups, I had Ben Davis and Leon King in my back line. The rest of the team, I agreed, but it's the same as what Michael Beale has selected tonight. But you surprised that no Leon King and he's went for James Sands tonight, Joshua?
A little bit, I guess. I don't think Sands has done much wrong. I know one of the games was a friendly game.
Yeah, there's much muchness, I think, between the pair.
Yeah, and I think that he one of the things that the manager said in the press conference, which was something that Johnny actually was speaking to me about yesterday. He referenced in the second half how having a midfielder back there, a player with kind of midfield-like tendencies, help Rangers to move the ball forward quickly. We know that's one of Sands' strengths, and I think he's tended to look better next when he's played at the back. He's looked better when he's been next to a natural centre half and alongside Lundstrom. It was a bit more shaky, although for that the second goal, there's a big deflection which helps Kevin Nisbet get through on goal. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, but it's not huge. It's not a controversial decision. Devine obviously continues it. At left back and Tillman in there, who was the match decider. It's a big test for him. It's a big game going away to Aberdeen. Ryan Kent, you presume, will play in that kind of free rolling behind the two strikers again, and Tillman will be given freedom to run from midfield. But to go back to another thing that Beale said in the press conference yesterday, the freedom of that front four players, Kent, Tillman, Morelos and Sakala, should not only give Rangers flexibility, but it should make them unpredictable to a degree. it should ensure that the team don't know exactly how to deal with them, because something we highlighted in our analysis piece after the game against Hibs, Morelos and Sakala were central strikers, but there was occasions in the first half where both of them were picking the ball up by the touchline out wide. That's not where they spent the majority of their game, but they were versatile in where they got the ball, where they got on the ball, and I think that's maybe what Beale really wants to introduce when he talks about new ideas, is that variety and freedom in the final third. So not a huge surprise about Sands. I think it'll be a similar setup to last time. I guess the question is, will Aberdeen come out and be more aggressive than they were against Celtic at the weekend, and how do Rangers cope with that if they come under a little bit more pressure?
Yeah, I'm a lot more confident with James Sands in the back line with Connor Goldson beside him than I was on Thursday night when John Lundstrom was the makeshift centre-back. And Alan McInnes raises a point here. Evening, Alan. Interesting, Lundstrom did not make a midfield slot. Good to see real competition coming back for places. I said in the morning briefing this morning that Michael Beale had a bit of a selection headache. I didn't foresee him playing Jack, Kamara and Lundstrom in the same team. I predicted that Lundstrom would be the player to make way. Should we read too much into that, Joshua, at this stage, or is it just a case of he has a number of quality options to choose from? Lundstrom, I'd imagine, may feature at some point this evening as the match wears on.
Slightly surprised, not overly, I guess. Jack is a player that he knows well. He's worked with a lot, and Lundstrom wasn't someone that fitted in as well under the Beale and Gerrard midfield last time out.
Yeah.
It's a completely different story after the year that he had and how good he was for those number of months, especially in the European run. But Beale, I guess, and Jack as someone that he trusts, and it's a slightly different role, I guess, playing at the base of midfield for maybe a Beale side than a Van Bronckhorst side. We actually have got a piece on the website which I might go and try and find, Derek, by a good friend Ali Bain, looking at that number 6 role and how it's slightly different away from home. Normally under Van Bronckhorst, the player at the base of midfield kind of wasn't tasked as much with breaking the opposition lines. There was a lot of diagonals. Remember that Motherwell 2-1 game, which we all mention all the time because it was such a bad experience watching
thanks for bringing it back up.
Yeah, exactly. Or even the Hearts game where it was a 4-0 win. You think of how many diagonals was played. It's different now. I'd imagine it's much more similar approach away from home under Beale than it was with Van Bronckhorst. And also, I guess there'll be an element of keeping Ross County in mind, because although there's a little bit of a break after that with 5 days until the game on the 28th, it's 2 games in very quick succession and 2 trips back up the road as well. So that might be factored in with team selection tonight, you'd imagine. Yeah,
let's get to a few more of the comments coming in. First of all, where are you living, Massey? I know where he is. He's in Alberta in Canada, I'm sure. He messaged me yesterday. Minus 35 degrees over there, which is unbelievably cold.
Wow.
Hopefully you're wrapped up warm, Massey, and hope it's warm in Aberdeen, just slightly, I'd imagine. Ian McDougall says, is King's omission due to the concussion protocols? No. I believe it's 7 to 10 days is the concussion protocols. I may be mistaken, but I did speak to a sports scientist on that in a few weeks ago, and he did say it was about 7 to 10 days from off the top of my head. So no, he's on the bench tonight. Whether he's used or not remains to be seen. Blair gets in touch. He says, we need a positive attitude tonight. We often struggle in this fixture. Best to attack them as they are basically rubbish. I'm sure Jim Goodwin would take dispute that, Joshua, but Aberdeen, are they capable of causing, I would say, an upset tonight? Are they going to come out at Rangers and have a go, or are they going to play like they did at the weekend and just try and soak up pressure? Jim Goodwin's side against Rangers previously, historically, have had really low XGs and have looked to shut up shop, but I think the Aberdeen supporters heading along tonight will be expecting a side to have a go at Rangers.
Yeah, you'd imagine so, especially after their approach at the weekend, and obviously Goodwin's side when they came to Ibrox in a couple of months ago were much more offensive. I'd be surprised if they sit back and hand over control of the game in the same way, but that space might suit Rangers a little bit more. I think the key thing is if Rangers turn up like they did in the first 45 minutes against Hibs, they'll make it a difficult game for themselves. If they turn up like they did in the second half, they should win the game because they're a better team. So a lot of logic suggests that even if it's away from home, they should be the one that gets 3 points. And one of the things that I think is really interesting and key for me is again something that Beale spoke about in his press conference: defending the transitions and making sure that Rangers keep Aberdeen boxed in if they do have a lot of the ball and if they do manage to play in and around the opposition penalty box. Because Aberdeen's front two, Duke and I think it's Majowski, I can't remember the exact pronunciation. But they've scored a lot of goals between them. They'll be dangerous as a front pair, and I think it's 20 goals they have between them. If Rangers turn up like they did in that second half, then of course they should win the game. Interesting to see Kent again in that free role. I thought he looked a lot better in midweek Derek. I know we've kind of already referenced that. Devine obviously continues there on the left-hand side as well. But yeah, obviously absolutely imperative that Rangers put on a showing like they did after the break, because before it they were nervy, they didn't defend attacks well. But having Connor Goldson back is absolutely huge, and I think makes it a completely different game. And not only because you have a natural defender, but you have the best defender available. And as Beale again spoke about in the press conference, someone who's such a leader for the team on the pitch.
Yeah, comment coming in here from William. He says, come on, guys, I totally respect your opinions, but why are you both kind of negative? We should be looking to put this team to the sword. Listen, I'm positive about tonight, William. I think it's an attack-minded team. I'm delighted to see that the Sakala-Morelos partnership continues. What he said about Kent, I'm excited to see him playing that free role. He was picking up different pockets of space across that front line on Thursday night, which I think suits his game. Malik Tillman had a terrific second half at Ibrox on Thursday night as well. I'm really pleased with the team, and with Connor Goldson back there, I think it just adds that stability at the back, which Rangers have been badly lacking. I think they can get a positive result tonight, Joshua. Listen, we all know Aberdeen, it's their cup final when they play against Rangers, but that's a team that excites me and is capable of picking up all 3 points and entertaining tonight, Joshua.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe the point that William's making is that Aberdeen, I think it was 0.07 expected goals against Celtic, something like 100 and something completed passes to almost 800 that Celtic completed. So if you look at those baseline numbers, then of course you're going to say that they wouldn't put up much of a challenge. They obviously had a specific type of game plan. The reason they only had one shot was because they spent the game in their own half and had a very specific approach. If it works and you get a point out of it, maybe the narrative is slightly different. Again, I don't think that will be the case tonight, not least because I think if you did that approach back to back in 2 games as a home manager, when the supporters expect you to go and have a bit of a go, you'd be struggling a bit. But again, I think that's less of a factor than would have been under Van Bronckhorst, and the reason for that is something that we've spoken about quite a lot, and again, something that the manager mentioned yesterday in his press conference is under Van Bronckhorst, Rangers kind of very reactive to what the opposition are going to do and maybe plan more of their game plan around that. Whereas under Beale, I think it is more about what he wants his side to do, how he wants his side to look, regardless of how the opposition play, and kind of making the opposition adapt to you, which you should, I think, do as the stronger team. So I don't think it will be too huge a factor. Rangers should get the 3 points if they play well, if they reach the levels that they're capable of. If that front four, Sakala, Kent, Morelos, and Tillman, the latter 3 of those in particular, and obviously Sakala gets his goal, I all thought looked a lot better in midweek against Hibs. If they can perform, then it'll give Rangers a really good chance of taking those points back down the road.
Yeah, we've got a question directed at you, Joshua, here from Massey. Gets in touch again. He says, a question for Josh. Why would Beale prefer Jack over Lundstrom? Both good players, but Lundstrom should start, shouldn't he? What's your reaction to that question?
Yeah, I guess we kind of covered it there, didn't we? I think Jack is as a player that he knows and that he trusts. Lundstrom has played his best football for me when he's been a bit more free in that midfield, and that's something that was covered a lot around this time last year maybe more towards the start of this year after he started playing for Van Bronckhorst. I don't think it's something you should read too much into. My guess would be that Lundstrom starts over Jack and Friday. Sorry, I was going to say midweek, but we're in midweek.
We need to remember there's another game coming up on Friday, another long trip as well. So I think he's going to utilise his squad. He was asked about this in the press conference, wasn't he, Michael Beale? And he was quizzed on the use of his squad, but you've got to think that there could be changes going into that game on Friday with the games in close proximity.
Yeah, definitely. And, we know that Cholak's going to be back for the game at Ross County. You'd imagine that maybe Ben Davies will start. The bench is starting to look a little bit stronger. And then you have the break until the 28th in the Old Firm game on the 2nd. So although there's no Boxing Day game, there is a lot of games in close proximity. I don't think it's something you can read into it at this stage. Maybe after 10 games, if Lundstrom isn't playing, you can read into it. But especially, he played that game out of position against Hibs last midweek. I don't think there's anything you can really read into that at the moment. Jack's a player that he trusts. And Jack also played well, I thought, especially in the second half. He looked good against Hibs, so perhaps that comes into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder of that Rangers team, folks. It's Alan McGregor in goal. The back four of James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, James Sands and Adam Devine. Midfield of Glenn Kamara and Ryan Jack. And Malik Tillman supporting the front three of Ryan Kent in behind Fashion Sakala and Alfredo Morelos. Just to give you an idea of the Aberdeen team, Roos in goal, McCrory, Stewart and Scales at the back. It looks like a midfield five of Richardson, Barron, Ramadani, Clarkson and Coulson, with Miofsky and Duck up top for them. So that's the team. Just a rundown of the Rangers bench. Again, it's McLaughlin, Lundstrom, Matondo, Wright, Arfield, Davis, McCann, King and Lowry. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the show as ever. It's greatly appreciated. Joshua and Johnny, if you're Twitter users, they'll be back on the Twitter halftime spaces. So if you don't want to listen to whatever pundits are in the Sky studio this evening, you can listen to Johnny and Joshua give their take of the first half events, and then myself and Johnny, I believe, should be back for a post-match video after the game. So yeah, we'll speak to you a little later on. Enjoy the game. Hope your team wins, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.